So welcome everyone to our final meeting of 2023 on this chilly fall day. As you all know, we are alternating in-person and virtual meetings, and we are so glad to share this virtual space with all of you today. The primary focus of today's meeting will be to acknowledge and thank our incoming and outgoing commissioners and committee members who have done so much in this important area of the law for so long. Our appreciation for all of their valuable work is more. We have more appreciation than I can adequately articulate. Thank you so much. We are also going to have a special presentation from several of our judges about the Trauma-Informed Courts project. But before we get to that, I'd like to share just a few housekeeping matters. This meeting is being recorded and streamed via YouTube. While the meeting is in progress, please check to make sure you are on mute unless you're talking, because as you know, that can interfere sometimes with everyone else's ability to hear what's going on. We won't be taking any breaks today. We know that everyone's time is valuable, and so we want to get this important work done as efficiently as possible. So if you do need to step away briefly, please feel free to do so, and please turn your camera off when you do that. Today's commission meeting notebook was shared last week by email and is also available on the Children's Commission website. Please note that since we met very recently on September 30th, there are no updates to the Children's Commission report or the financial report, at least none that we will report on today. And again, thank you so much for participating virtually. One of the things that we did learn from the pandemic is that these kinds of meetings can really help everybody in terms of efficiency, while allowing us to still have a good number of meetings in person because of the social camaraderie that provides. So let's get to adoption of the minutes. We're going to continue, as always, and I certainly do, and I know Justice Huddle does, reflect on the depth and the breadth of our discussions together. We certainly try to make them as meaningful as possible. And as always, if any of you have any suggestions about any ideas you have to make things more relevant to what we need to be discussing, please let me or Jamie or Justice Huddle or any of the staff know. The diversity of thought and perspective is what makes this Children's Commission the valuable thing that it is. And I do know that throughout the country, we are very, very admired for the work we do in this area. So thank you for your continued engagement and commitment to taking on these complex challenges that we all are so committed to. So the meetings were distributed behind tab 2 in the meetings notebook in advance of the meeting. I hope that everyone has had the opportunity to review the minutes. So are there any corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the minutes from the September 15th in-person meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are adopted. Thank you so much. So with regard to our incoming and outgoing members, I now invite you to look at tab 1 in the meeting notebook that was distributed several days ago. This document includes commission, committee, and collaborative council membership as well as staff. We have a few changes this year, not too many, but a few. Judge Alvarado, thank you so much for your continued service. Tell us, if you don't mind, what do you value about the Children's Commission?
And let me know if you can't hear me. But I value the collaborative effort that's made, the exchange of information that we receive, that we can bring back and incorporate into the programs that we have here. and going back to the collaboration effort, collaborating with other jurisdictions to assist in launching programming and the facilitation that the staff has provided to us in doing that. So I would say those are some of the things that I value most about the commission. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Judge. We certainly do value your service. Thank you so much. We also would like to recognize Ms. Sheila Craig. She is reappointed as a commissioner. However, unfortunately, she is unable to join us today because she had a funeral that she had to attend. But as you all know, previously, Ms. Craig served as the equity advisor because her term as commissioner had expired. But going forward, her new appointment and all future appointments, at least as of this time, will be as commissioner. So I want to express thanks on behalf of the commission, on behalf of the court, for her continued commitment to sharing her wisdom and insights. We are all very, very blessed by that. The former Justice Michael Massengale will also roll off of the Children's Commission, and we thank him for his many years of service, especially his invaluable assistance to develop the Trial Skill Training Program. We have printed a certificate of service, which has been sent to him in acknowledgement of his impact on the commission over the years. And we certainly do value that service very, very much. So thanks to Justice Massengale for all that he's done for all of these years. Additionally, there are a few changes to committee or collaborative council membership. Gabriella McDonald of Texas Appleseed, Natalie Taylor, DFPS Director of Permanency, and Emily Miller, a court-appointed attorney, recently joined our Systems Improvement Committee. Welcome and thank you all for your important work. Lori Duke, Judge Angela Ellis, and Judge Ann Daring rolled off the Legal Practice and Process Committee, and Crystal Leth Pignon joined that committee. That's certainly a very important committee that does important work. And Judge Denise Fortenberry, Judge Yahara Gutierrez, Tracy Harding, and Sherabeth Niehaus rolled off the training committee this year. So please, all join me in thanking these amazing partners for their many contributions to this important work. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now then, we are going to have an update from the Office of Court Administration. And today, the lovely Anissa Johnson is here. So invite Ms. Johnson, especially in Children's Court Programs Manager for OCA, to please provide an update.
Thank you, Justice Lehrman. Good morning, everyone. As some of you know, the Texas Judicial Council is meeting this morning from 10 to 12. So Megan could not join us, nor could Mena, nor could Jeffrey. So I get the pleasure to give you a brief update. The only update I have that's relevant to our children's courts is we have a pilot project that we're working with the Children's Commission and the Prevention and Early Intervention team with DFPS. And I think Amy has reported on this project before. We call them Early Intervention Court Liaisons. We have 3 in the state. We lost the one for Bell County back in May, but we recently hired her replacement. So I'm really excited to get her up to speed and get back to the good work that her predecessor was doing in establishing relationships with community providers and keeping those connections between our courts, our child protection courts, and the providers in the community. A couple of other things that the agency has been up to since Megan last reported out. We're currently in the midst of developing an RFP for a statewide text reminder program as directed by House Bill 4293. And this would provide the technology to counties to integrate a court reminder program that would send text messages to notify criminal defendants of scheduled court appearances. And this would be at no charge to the county. As directed by Senate Bill 48, we're also starting the process of conducting a study on the effectiveness of protective orders in the state. And this was just one of many bills targeted to improving the area of protection orders. And OCA employs a domestic violence resource attorney. Her name is Kim Perkowichik. She's done several trainings across the state for many years now. So she'll be leading that effort.
Let me ask you, how are you going to trace the effectiveness of that? What are you going to do that?
Justice, I don't have the specifics on how they're going to do that, but I can definitely find out and get that information out to you and Jamie to disseminate to the group.
Thanks.
Okay, as directed by Senate Bill 48, we're also starting the process of conducting a study. OCA received a grant close to $750,000 from the Bipartisan Safety Community Act of 2022 to help improve CJIS and NICS reporting. And we'll be using those funds to launch 2 initiatives. I don't know what those are. They didn't give them to me. But one is to partner with DPS to conduct regional trainings on the requirements of NICS and CJIS reporting. And the second is to offer no consequence audits of clerk's office case files to ensure they are properly reporting such information. And our agency continues to make progress on one of our more complex projects, the case level data project that Megan reported on. OCA currently only collects the aggregate data about our court's caseloads at the county level. And the Judicial Council is considering an amendment this morning and a new rule to Chapter 171 of the Texas Administrative Rules to address some of these new reporting requirements. And that's all the updates I have for OCA.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, and please send our best to Megan.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to hear from DFPS, and I think that Erica Benuelos is here, right? And Sasha Roscoe, I think she was running a little late, but I don't know if she's made it or not. But we can go ahead with Erica.
So hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm having some difficulties with Zoom. So good morning. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, and I might not be able to put it up. Is there a way for me to do it, to share it so that I can put up the PowerPoint by any chance?
It's Jamie, we'll work on that. If you also want to email it to me or have someone email it to me, if that doesn't work.
Perfect. I will email it to you right now.
Thank you for going to the trouble of preparing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just send this to you really quickly.
Judge Byrne, I think is your hand raised? No.
No, Justice Learman, no.
Oh, I see. That was just, I don't know what that was. Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, Jamie, I sent it to you.
Thanks, Erica.
Uh-huh.
Can you give us a little bit of an oral update about what you
Sure.
all have been doing?
Yes, absolutely. So we are going to talk, well, today, since it is National Adoption Month in November, I wanted to really talk about all the various efforts that we are currently doing in order to ensure that kids have a permanent home, and that we also work on kinship adoptions. We're working on kinship adoptions. And also, what are we doing to recruit for those older children and youth? And sometimes that age group tends to be a little bit of a struggle. And so I just kind of wanted to paint the picture for y'all in terms of all the various efforts that we have going on. So efforts to increase our kinship verification and adoption. Let me turn on my camera. That's just rude. Okay, so we continue to update policies to increase placements with kinship caregivers. And the purpose of this is to make sure that along the way, when we are working with our children, that we have a connection to their kinship caregivers, regardless of where their placement is at. Can you go to the next slide, Jamie? Thank you. So we are looking at we've done some updates to our policy and practices. And one of those big ones, you can see a couple of efforts that we have going on. And one of them is that we are, there was some changes to the Finders program, which helps us find relatives. And so we are ensuring that that gets done at the onset of cases so that we can identify relatives for permanent placements. We are also updating our home assessment process from the onset, which is really important because we don't have to wait for a full-blown home study. We can actually do a preliminary home assessment and actually place kids in kinship placements from the onset of removal or along the way without needing to do a full, we'll still do a full-blown home study, but this is a preliminary. And then, of course, we had Senate Bill 1896, which really has talked about the provisional license for kinship caregivers. And that's going to be really, really important because that allows our caregivers to go through a different process so that it is a more modified version to meet their needs versus a foster parent who says, I want to be a foster parent and I want to, adopt. And so some of the minimum standards will look differently for kinship providers. And so we're super excited about that. And we do feel that this new way of verifying kinship caregivers will allow for not just more verifications, but also for more adoptions. So we're definitely excited about that. And then, so this is, so one of the things that we have is the Kinship Collaboration Group. And this is one of the most important groups that we have. So we lead the group with kinship caregivers who have that lived experience. They also provide the voice for improving kinship practices within CPS. And this group also develops ways of communicating down to other kinship caregivers, encouraging them to get verified as kinship caregivers, to join support groups. They talk about adoptions, and they talk about all the support services that are available for them as a way of encouraging them to not just become kinship caregivers, but to get verified and maybe even in the future. We know that if kinship caregivers get verified up front, and then they go into an adoption, it really reduces the time to permanency. So it's really, really important that we get kinship caregivers verified from the onset. So this group that has lots of lived experience is definitely letting their voice be heard in terms of even how we communicate the words that we use. So it's been a wonderful group that we have. And as you can see on the screen, they have different ways of kind of promoting what they're doing. And most importantly, we also take policies and procedures to this group to review when it comes to updating kinship policy. Anything that affects kinship, we do give them an opportunity to have a voice and to provide us some feedback. So the other thing that we're doing, and some of you have probably heard about TARE and the upgrade to the system. And so TARE features our children's photos, profiles, videos. And this system is undergoing enhancement and is projected to go live in 2025. That is our hope. We have a TARE program specialist at State Office that really focuses on updating the profiles and ensuring that there's the most updated information on our kids. And that's really important when we're talking about children getting adopted, because of course, this is where most of our non-relative adoptions come from. So it's really, really important that we not just maintain the system, but that we have lots of information on our kids, and most importantly, that it's updated. But I do believe that the enhancements will definitely bring a new, not just a new look, but a new way for people that are looking to adopt our kids to have a better sort of understanding of who the kids are, and also, of course, lots of information and who to contact if they're interested. So the expansion of Heart Galleries, we know that Heart Galleries has been around for some time, and we've always partnered with the Heart Galleries. I will say that COVID impacted that interaction a little bit, just because these are very public displays of our children who are up for adoption. So these are really designed to promote the adoption of children, and especially those sibling groups who are a little bit harder to place. If you've ever seen these at various locations, I just want to take like a whole group of siblings. The portraits are very nicely done. And that is what we're hoping, is that people see these photos and are interested, and that they do contact us for adoption. So currently, DFPS is collaborating with the newly formed Heart Gallery of Texas. And it's really, our goal is to expand and support the Heart Galleries all across. And in September, Heart Galleries of Texas has started an RFA process to select organizations that can, for grant funding, so that they can launch their own Heart Gallery. And currently that is open, or will be open for all 11 regions. And we're really, really excited that this might go down to the community level, depending on who applies for those RFAs. So really excited about the work that we're doing with the Heart Galleries. So the other thing that we do all the time I know that November is National Adoption Month, but throughout the entire year, we do a lot of recruitment to find forever homes for our children. And so the Why Not You, we have a recruitment campaign, and that has been updated from the prior one that we had. And so in 2022 to 2023, DFPS is also utilizing some captive funding to purchase an abundance of foster and adoption recruitment items, and also for foster and adoption support materials, which get distributed throughout the state. And that also includes us partnering with our SSCC partners. We do share those recruitment materials and processes with them as well. And so as we transition our foster and adoptive program out to the SSCCs, we have definitely, as for those areas that have already transitioned out our FAD program, we share those resources with them so that they can also have that support from the funding. And then we also have our community stakeholders and our organizations collaborate with DFPS, and we host adoption matching events to help recruit foster and adoptive homes for kids. We also have local organizations that do enter into that MOU in order to assist with targeted recruitment in areas where children reside and are looking for very much permanent placement homes. So we have a lot of partnerships with our local television stations that really, and some of you might see some of our kids being featured. They're called the Wednesday Child, and we've had some success with that. The stories are very, they really tug at your heartstrings, and I think that has been a very, we are so thankful to the television stations for their willingness to help us recruit adoptive parents. And sometimes we have that older population participate in those, and so we've had some success. Of course, a lot of us have heard of Wendy's Wonderful Kids. I can't say enough how wonderful their partnership is with us. They have expanded out to not just various pieces of our state, but also into the SSEC areas. And so they are doing amazing work for us, finding permanent homes for children. And they really work with the children who might not, we have not been able to find a permanent home for them. So they help us to really focus and work in partnership with the kids in the community to find a permanent home. And of course, we have other campaigns that we do throughout the community to really just talk about our kids, talk about their needs, and most importantly, really elevate the need for our kids to have a forever home. So we continue to do that throughout the year. And then we have Operation Push. And so Push stands for Placing Us in Safe Homes. And originally this started back in April of 2005, but we continue to do this big push annually. In this program, it's some dedicated staff that we have that really work on identifying what are the gaps in getting this child to permanency. And what I mean by that, we have children that are already in their intended to be permanent home. But for some reason, there is a gap there, or there's something that's missing, or the relative might need more hands-on help. And so this group of individuals helps move the adoption through, not only to identify the gaps, but most importantly, to find solutions so that we can get the child adopted. And so if the child's already there and is ready to be adopted, we want to make sure that we cut whatever barriers we're seeing. And so we've seen some really great success with Push, just because again, they have that dedicated time to really dive into what are the gaps and what are the solutions. And then of course, we have our state office adoption program specialist who really works intensively with the regions to work on increasing the number of adoptions that we have. They also look at certain children quarterly to identify, what is missing, why isn't this child adopted, and or again, if they're in their intended permanency home, what do we need to do to move them onto permanency? The other big partnership that we have is with the Texas Council on Adoptable Children, and which the acronym is COAC. And this is a statewide organization whose purpose is to connect and train and engage some of our caregivers for the purpose of unifying a family into not just an adoptive placement, but to really support it. As you can see, they help families adjust. They provide some services to help them adjust to the adoption and cope. And this really helps because we know that what we don't want to see is an adoption break down the line 2 years from now and the child comes back into care. So this organization really providing those added support services to these families is extremely helpful in terms of the recidivism. And then there's some other information listed on the slide here, but the COAC does hold events to provide support to the community for adoptive families. And as mentioned during these events, they can provide anything from specialized training for the adoptive children and families. And again, it's that keyword of ensuring that there is a support for them along the way and afterwards, which again is just really important to the success of that adoption. And they serve both. They serve kinship adoptions as well as non-relative adoptions. And then, of course, we have many of different events that we have going on for the month of National Adoption Day or month. And so, as you can see, these are some of the events that we have going on. We have a lot, we do a lot on social media for this month. We post information on various websites, on social media platforms. And again, we partner with COAC in doing various events across the state. And as you can see, they will be hosting family photos in San Antonio, Austin, Houston, and Dallas. So they really are across the state. And again, this partnership with them is so important to us, but it's more important to the children and the families who are adopting. So this is just kind of a very quick review of everything that we're doing for adoptions. I know that our goal, of course, is always to increase the adoption with relative and kinship, but we also value the non-relative adoptions. Anytime our child gets to have a forever home, whether they're 10, 9, or 12, it's always a good thing. I used to, my kids used to be like, they couldn't understand this world that I work in. And they would always say like, Mom, I don't understand. Like every kid should have a family. And I'm like, you're right. Every child should have a family. And we try to do that to the best of our abilities, but we certainly couldn't do it without the community. We couldn't do it without the judges' help. We couldn't do it with all the various support services across the community. So we are extremely grateful for all the partnerships across the state in order to make this happen and in order to give a child a forever home.
Thank you so much, Ms. Banuelos. We really appreciate that very extensive report and appreciate what you all are doing at CPS. It's important. We know that it's a challenging job. So thank you for what you do.
Thank
Justice
you.
Lehrman, there is a question in the Q&A, if it's okay for me to read it.
Sure.
Is DFPS still working on the provisional license in addition to the kinship-specific license? What are the estimated completion implementation dates on those?
So we are partnering, DFPS is partnering with HHSC on sort of looking at what does that provisional license look like. And at this point, it's not completed or anything, but I can send you some information. I don't know all the details in and out right now, Jamie, but I know that they're hard at work on it. We want to launch it as soon as possible. We really think it's going to change the number of kinship caregivers that are eligible to be verified and or can actually go through the process and be successful in that. But I can email you some information and an update on that, Jamie, for you to distribute to the group. Happy to do that.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Okay. So now we're going to go proceed with a presentation on trauma-informed courts.
Justice
I
Lehrman,
think-
I'm so
yes.
sorry to interrupt, but I believe Sasha Roscoe did just join us to do the.
Oh, she
PEI
did.
portion.
Okay, I'm sorry. I certainly didn't mean to.
No, I
skip
think that
over
was
you.
me. I think that was the anything else, and I didn't pop up quickly enough. But I did have a smaller update, nothing as extensive as Erica, but I did want to just share a few things happening in the prevention and community well-being area. I know I talked last time about how the PEI division is planning to move, or is really engaged in making a move to HHSC next September. So that's not much interest to this. I mean, the move maybe, but not all of the activity involved in making that happen, which is taking up a lot of our time. But what I did think was really noteworthy to share with you all is what are the areas that are in the prevention and community well-being division that are remaining at DFPS, how those are going to be structurally situated at DFPS, which will happen in January. So the first of those that I know is of great interest to this commission is the work of the Family First Prevention Services Act. So the division run by Heather Thorpe that's working in part on the House Bill 3041 pilots, but also on the state's efforts to submit a plan to the Administration for Children and Families and sort of engage in the longer term planning around FFPSA. That work will be reporting directly to the Chief of Staff, Alyssa Jones, starting January 1, will not be under my direction. Also, the Faith-Based and Community Engagement Division that supports community engagement efforts around and things like Care Portal that you might know, or connecting resources to our kids and our families. That division will be moving under Jason Steele, whose role will expand from Director of Government Relations to be Director of Government Relations and External Relations. And the other area reporting to me that will be moving is the Office for Addressing Disproportionality and Disparities. That office, led by Mo Hobson and Sherry Beth Niehaus, who I know you probably met or heard from by this point, they will be part of the Faith-Based and Community Engagement Division. So they're going to join those efforts. And then the Office of Child Safety, that reads all the child abuse, neglect, fatalities, and puts out the annual report of a trend analysis on fatality work. That is going to move to report to Deputy Commissioner Sims. But that won't happen until a little bit later in the year, because that's been more integrated into the Prevention and Early Intervention Division for a longer period of time. So just a quick update on some of the structural reorganizations as DFPS and HHSC work to move the prevention division over. Meanwhile, we're busy getting the $38 million of additional funding that we received out to both a combination of our existing grantees to expand services and efforts, and then also out to new communities through competitive grants. And we're already seeing an increase in services, but also some exciting new areas we're funding in partnership with the Texas Alliance, like Family Resource Centers. These are warm, welcoming hubs for families to get navigated to whatever supports they might need. And we've gone from 7 to 17, and there's probably even more to come. And these can be very general to anyone needing help as a parent, including foster parents, kinship providers, parents in the general community, parents engaged in an investigation. They can also be very specific to any of those kinds of populations, or maybe just families with young children. So those get tailored by the community. I heard a story the other day about, I think the one in Georgetown that Starry is opening, where they just were, because they're just sort of open door and place-based, that a grandmother who had just come into caring for her 4 grandchildren because her child died of a drug overdose just came to say, I just need help. And they were able to start helping and navigating her. And this is outside of child protection, at least initially. And I'm sure that they'll need to sort of get involved with the courts at some point around her rights as a grandparent. But that's just one example of how Family Resource Centers are creating an easier front door for families to get help, hopefully sooner. And the last thing I wanted to share was something I don't think I've talked about too much, but I didn't know how much the Children's Commission was aware of our Get Parenting Tips website. I don't know, Jamie, if I can share my screen. I was just going to kind of give a quick orientation of that. I don't know. Oh, I do. I
Should
see
be
the
able
button
to
right there.
see it in the middle at the bottom on the.
There we go. All right. Can everybody see that? So this is, and it's getparentingtips.com, but it is, so even though the domain seems very open and not government-like, it is created by by the Prevention and Early Intervention Division. It is aimed, as you can imagine, at parents. We've market tested it. We have a contract with a marketing group to put it together. And it's a combination of video content, article content, on everything from toilet training to ADHD to teen issues to struggles as a parent. It advertises the parenting helpline, which is run by the statewide intake helpline, where they can also, through chat or through phone, help parents navigate. There's also content broken down by the age of children. And And then the last thing I wanted, and we have a lot of videos of that, what parents have told us they want is like real talk from real parents about, just what it's like when you're stressed out and not a perfect parent. And so we do have a good bit of that content. But the last thing I wanted to highlight real quickly was we have expanded our search feature. So this might be helpful to some of your staff. But you can select your county and even narrow it down to maybe age of the children or any specific kinds of, if you're in more specific needs as a parent, then and kind of what you're looking for. And then you can search and you'll see what PEI resources are available in that community. So if you've ever wondered, like, I hear about these programs, but I don't know how to find them, this is how you can do that. Through the Get Parenting Tips website. So I just wanted to kind of make that resource known to you all. And, oh, I see a hand raised.
Well, I just, thanks for that. I think that website is a great idea. I wonder what efforts y'all are making to get people to know that the website exists.
Yeah. Well, we do have social media presence on Instagram and Facebook, and we do fund some Google search. This is where I'm not exactly sure what all this stuff means, but we do whatever it is to make sure folks might get to us via Google if they're Googling for help. And in fact, the name Get Parenting Tips, we thought, oh, it's not very fun or cute. But it's what parents Google. And apparently we did a lot of searching, and it's literally what parents put in Google. And so that's what we named it, both because it's what parents are looking for and also because it will get us a faster search mechanism. But we do have a Get Parenting Tips social media page or account. So it's not, I mean, as you can imagine, it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to saturate a market to sell anything. So we're by no means, probably getting out as much as we could given the budget that we have, but that's our main attempt.
For sure. I mean, I think it'd be great. This group here has a pretty powerful voice in the right space. And so I think it'd be useful if you could put the handles of the social media pages into the chat. And I, for example, that's one tangible thing I can do today is sort of put those out on our pages, and so maybe others could do the same, or make sure that people in our courts know that that's there and something to make easily available. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely. I will get those handles into the chat as soon as I can put my hands on them. Thank you for that suggestion.
We have a few questions if you're willing to answer them.
Of course.
Okay. The first is, where can we find a list of the new family resource centers?
Well, I can get that to you, Jamie. How about I get that to you probably today?
Okay.
And it's a growing list, so we can kind of give you an updated list to share.
Great. We can send it by email to everybody who was invited to this meeting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is Get Parenting Tips connected to 211 or pulling resources from 211 find help?
No, we do refer to 211 in all over our website, but we are not pulling resources from it. This is other than the actual content, the articles and the videos that we have, this is all just connected to the PEI programming.
Okay, the next one is, what's the best way for families to connect with family resource centers? Is there a link for the available locations? Which I know you just said you'll answer that part, but how do people get families connected to the centers?
Okay, I can get you both of those things, the list and sort of how to connect. Definitely. I'm glad there's so much interest.
Thank you, Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Sasha, for that. It's really important, the work you do. And I know I say this every time, but I think so frequently you all are underappreciated. So thank you very much for what all you're doing.
For saying that.
Appreciate it.
I'm so sorry. We got one more question come in. Could you share again the division, the disproportionalities and disparities will be under, and who will direct that work?
Yep. So Mo and Sherry Beth will report to Rachel Dewar, who's the director of the Faith-Based and Community Engagement Division. And then that will be under Jason Steele, who's the director of Government and External Relations. And that will not happen until January 1st. So for the remainder of the year, they'll still be reporting to me.
Sasha.
Any more questions? Does that do it? Okay. Again, thank you so much, Sasha, and thank you also, Ms. Bonuelos. I appreciate it. As you all see, my wonderful, brilliant, and fantastic colleague, Justice Rebecca Huddle, has joined us. She was having some technical problems due to no fault of her own. And
That's debatable. It very well was my own fault.
it's not true. I know you. So now I'm going to turn it over to the wonderful Justice Huddle. We're on trauma-informed courts, Justice Huddle.
Thank you, Justice Lehrman, and good morning. Happy to be here. Pardon my tardiness. I get the really fun job of introducing our next topic, which is a panel discussion that I'm really excited to hear about. These judges who are coming to you on the panel they're dedicated, they're innovative leaders, and they are here to tell us about the pilot program on trauma-informed courts. Everyone, I'm told, has made it on to the Zoom meeting, and so I think we're ready to go, and I will give you just a thumbnail sketch, a very brief introduction of each of them before we hand it over to them to dive in. So a word about the pilot program itself. The pilot is a partnership with the Children's Commission and the Texas Alliance of Child and Family Services. We have a moderator. That's all I'm going to tell you. The panelists will tell you the rest of what you should know about the pilot program itself. Our moderator, longtime judicial leader on the issue of trauma, is Judge Carlos Villalon, who I had the pleasure of sitting briefly at the lunch table with just a couple of weeks ago here. Judge Villalon is of the Child Protection Court in the Rio Grande Valley West. I'll mention briefly, Judge Villalon, you might want to say more about each of the panelists as you get going, but I'll just give an overview of who each of them is. We have Judge Linda Dunson, the judge of the 309th Family Court of Harris County. We have Judge Angela Graves Harrington, judge of the 246th District Court here in Houston also. We have Judge Andrea James, an associate judge of the 2nd Region Child Protection Court number 2. And last but not least, Judge Cheryl Vaughn, the associate judge of the 8th Region North Child Protection Court. So with those introductions, I'll hand it over to you, Judge Villalon. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Carlos Villalon, and I'm the associate judge for the Child Protection Court of the Rio Grande Valley West, and also the chair of the statewide collaborative on trauma-informed care. And this morning, I have the honor of moderating a panel of 4 amazing judges who are going to share a little bit about the great work that they're doing in their jurisdictions. But before I move to the panel, I think that we all on the panel agree that I do need to acknowledge some individuals whose hard work and dedication and expertise really made this project possible, and then give you a brief overview of how we got here. And so I want to acknowledge the contributions of Jamie Bernstein and the Children's Commission, of course, for hosting this project and doing an excellent job. Chief Justice Darlene Byrne, who I think I saw her on here. Yes, she's here. For her service as chair and for her continued commitment to the success for this project. Jocelyn Fowler, formerly of the Children's Commission. Katie Bourgeois and Santiago Cernigliato with the Texas Alliance of Child and Family Services, who really did the heavy lifting here and provided the technical support for all of our sites. And so their commitment and their dedication really helped this project flow. And so thank you all for everything that you've done. You've done an amazing job in keeping this project moving and I want to tell you a little bit about how we got here. So this project really is a result of all the amazing work that was done by the Statewide Collaborative on Trauma-Informed Care and the task force. It came about really after the Implementation Task Force held its Judicial Trauma Institute back in 2021. And then we had a follow-up meeting with the sites that were invited, and we had a number of courts participate in that program. And what we decided was, the pandemic presented some challenges for everyone. And it even presented some challenges for us to meet and to continue to work at full capacity. But we had an amazing blueprint building a trauma-informed child welfare system. All of the input that we received from our task force members and our group on trauma-informed care, but we were at idle. And Justice Byrne and I wanted to take this thing for a test drive. That's really what we wanted to do. And so we discussed this with a group and decided to put it in gear. And so Chief Justice Byrne and I proposed a project that's similar to our experiences in participating with NCJFCJ's Model Courts and Implementation Sites project as model courts that would allow us to identify some courts in both rural and heavily populated areas that were willing to implement the blueprint in their jurisdictions and provide them with the individualized support in the form of trainings and have them create teams in their courts with an emphasis on changing the court environment to a trauma-informed and collaborative workspace, and to have them identify a specific project that we could track along the way and hopefully get some data from. And so that's really the scope of this project. It's very simplified for a reason that I want to let these folks talk about what they've done in their jurisdictions and then all the amazing work that they're doing. And Justice Huddle has already introduced our judges that are here today, but I'm going to go through them one more time. So we have Judge Dunson from the 309th State Judicial District Court in Harris County. We have Judge Angela Grace Harrington with the 246th State Judicial District Court in Harris County. And we have two of our Child Protection Court judges. We have Judge Andrea James, who presides over the 2nd Region Child Protection Court that presides over Angelina, Brazos, Grimes, Madison, and Walker County. Hopefully I got them all. And Judge Cheryl Vaughn, who is the presiding judge of the 8th Region North Child Protection Court that presides over Cook, Grayson, Jack, and Wise County. So we have two rural courts and we have 2 courts from heavily populated areas. And we wanted to see how it would work in both because we would like this project to be implemented and embraced by the entire state. This is really for the other judges, and with the hope that they will take on a similar project in their own jurisdictions. And so what I'm going to do is I guess I'm going to go in that order. And so I'm going to have the judges briefly discuss or introduce their project. And then we'll talk about the challenges and the successes and everything else that goes along with that. Jamie.
Judge Violin, before we start, I did just want to share that Judge Graves Harrington did have an unavoidable conflict unexpectedly. So we'll only be hearing from 3 other panelists today.
Very good. Very good. Okay. And so I will go to Judge Linda Marie Dunson. Judge Dunson, do you want to tell us a little bit about the project that you all just decided to do, please?
Yes, thank you. When we initially started our project, we had chosen to create a video just to introduce the litigants to the 309th and to tell them about being a little trauma informed and to kind of decrease their apprehension and stress levels as they went through the process. But as I've increased my trainings and my knowledge of what a trauma-informed court was and became more trauma sensitive, and which made me want to be more trauma responsive. I saw that I needed to implement pretty much like an ecosystem within my court. So we ended up creating a survey that the parents would take when they enter the courtroom, and they have one when they exit, because we want to see if their feeling that they felt about coming in contact with the child welfare system, was it positive did it change because of the way we treated them through the process. We also created a pamphlet for children that included information that directed them to the entire Children's Bill of Rights and their contact information for the attorney that was assigned to them and what their expectations that they could expect while they were in the system. And we also created a room, what we call our connection room, where sometime if a parent gets upset during the trial, we can put them in that space, which is a common space. And there's also available resources in there, books in there, a place where they can learn about resources. It's just their own space, their own comfortable space. We also, what else? We did so much. We also brought on a nonprofit organization that had connection with at least 60 other nonprofit organizations so that we could find resources because we were having difficulty linking families to resources that they may have need. The department wasn't forthcoming with resources that were available to help those families. But it is an ongoing process. We are getting better and stronger every day as we interact with those families and we increase our knowledge. And we are working on collaborating with community leaders, which we got a team of them. But additionally, we are using our trained attorneys. We're going to have them go out into the community to inform the families of their rights and their expectations if they may encounter the Texas Department and Family and Protective Services in their life at any point.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Judge Dunson. I'm going to move to, who's my next on my list? Judge Andrea James.
Good morning, everybody. We had, as Judge Villalon alluded to, I have counties that are generally more rural in nature, and by definition, we're going to have fewer resources. My project changed quite a bit over time. I think it can't be understated about putting a team together. If you're interested in doing this, putting a team together that has a lot of natural buy-in to this concept. But I started with one of my smaller counties, and we had a grand plan to do a very intensive training for our stakeholders, the lawyers that participate in this and represent parents and children, the CASA representatives, the department workers. But when you're starting with a budget of zero, it's really hard to get those grand things put in place. So we did the next best thing, and we got creative with what we had. So it's, I guess the analogy would be a really wonderful, very complex Christmas present, and the kid plays with the box. We were the box. And what we chose to do was focus on phased service plans. And those service plans were even different from some of our models in that the lawyer on the team really narrowed it down to a 2-page service plan. There were 3 phases. And what we did was we were very selective in which cases we chose to have those phased service plans. They worked very well with parents with longstanding substance abuse problems, with untreated mental health, with difficulties with domestic violence. For example, with a parent with substance abuse problems, their service plan in the first stages was one thing. It was sobriety. Because if you don't have sobriety, you can do all the evaluations in the world, and you're going to get skewed data. So that's what we did. And we ended up having a lot of buy-in from everybody. And we found other community resources that even the department did not know exist. And we partnered with the Texas Workforce Commission. And instead of having the parent, go find employment so you can have a safe, stable home because you can pay for it. We got them in touch with the Texas Workforce Commission, which I learned in this process, next to veterans, the next population that particular agency serves are kids in foster care or former foster kids. And a lot of our parents are former foster kids. So we took a grand plan that was hundreds of pages long and we turned it into 3 2-page documents that are very easily digestible. And anybody can do that, whether you're in a big city or a teeny tiny town.
Very good. Thank you, Judge James. And then Judge Cheryl Vaughn.
All right. So what we found, really the hardest thing I think that we dealt with in the beginning was just finding a narrow focus, because there were so many things that we really wanted to do to create a trauma responsive courtroom, but it was overwhelming. And so what we made the decision to do was, I like Judge James, I am in 4 rural counties. I picked Wise County as my focus. The reason I did that is because I have a very strong CASA program there. And I also have very strong, very engaged attorneys in that county. And so it seemed like really the best place to begin. So what we ended up finally narrowing down to what our focus was going to be was parent engagement. Because what we were seeing was that if we did not capture those parents by about the status hearing, really, then we probably never were. And if we got to the initial permanency hearing and they weren't making any progress, then we knew what was going to happen. And we saw that happening way too often. And so what we really focused on was, how do we engage parents early on so that hopefully we don't lose them as we go through this. And so we did that in several ways. We really focused on collaboration amongst all of our parties. We became a team. And what we really strive to become is an intentional group of support that would come around the parents that came into our courtroom to provide them with encouragement, even when they weren't getting that from other areas. Like Judge James, we worked on phase service plans as well, because we found the same issues, that some of the reasons that our parents were getting overwhelmed and were giving up was because they felt there were so many things that they had to do that they couldn't possibly do at all. They were hitting these barriers and they just didn't know what to do. Part of that as well is we created a parent notebook that we now provide to all of our parents at the status hearing. And it is a binder that is full of letters from me that explain, this is what court looks like. These are who these people are that you're going to be seeing. These are what these different hearings are for. It has different forms in there that they can use. It has places for them to keep all of their certificates and their drug tests and the pictures of their children and all of the things. Thankfully, the Office of Court Administration has not questioned why we have suddenly been ordering 50 to 100 binders at a time so, for us to create that. But it's the best feeling when parents walk into the courtroom and they are carrying their binders that have all these pictures of their children in the pockets on the outside, and they're getting fuller each time they come to court. So the last thing that we really focused on was just an overall feel of our courtroom and disarming the fear that people naturally have when they walk through those doors. And we've done that in different ways. We have I have a person who works with me who is training her service dog as a therapy dog. And so we have Hugo, who comes to court every day in Wise County when we are there. We have really moved around what our courtroom setting is like. I made CPS and CASA stop sitting together in clumps. They have to sit with their parents now when they come in, so that it doesn't look like an us or them situation. My person with the dog is now she has set up a table outside of the courtroom, and as parents come in, she finds out who they are. Do they know if their attorneys are there already at adversary hearings? Do they know who the people are, what they are supposed to be doing? She guides them to where they're supposed to go and makes sure that they're doing okay. I do more of the talking than the attorneys do. And I start with the parents and really just gauge how are they feeling. Judge Byrne, you have a hand up.
I'll wait until you're done, Judge.
No, you're good. I was about done. And the last thing that we've done is, like I think Judge Dunson, we've instituted surveys that we do provide to our parents to really kind of get some feedback from them on what their experience has been, both in court and with the different parties with the notebook, so that we can just continue to improve with helping our families.
Justice Brown?
Thank you, Judge Villalone, and all you other judges that are inspiring us in this meeting today. I just want to hand it back to Judge Villalone. He is just a warrior for this work, and I was absolutely honored to work along beside him for this project. But I also am so inspired by these judges that shared with us today. And I'm so inspired that I'm going to make a recommendation because what I'm really excited about is what are these innovative judges going to do for their community in the next year. And I sure would like for us to go ahead and commit to getting them back on our calendar in about a year and a half, and hear again the new and additional innovations that I know that they're going to bring and continue to bring to their communities, to make children and families feel safe and feel heard in their court systems, and supported. So thank you very much for inspiring us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So all of you have some amazing projects going on, but I'm sure it wasn't easy to get them going. And so we're going to talk about that next. So I'm going to go to Judge Dunson first, and we're going to talk about what were the challenges in getting this started and getting this going. So Judge Dunson, do you want to tell us about some of your challenges there?
Yes. One like that I mentioned previously is deciding what a trauma-informed court should really look like. And that was changing as I told you, as my knowledge increased. Another challenge was getting the attorneys properly trained and getting them to change the way that they, the biases they had regarding family, and to move from an adversarial position to an advocacy position where they could see that them representing, keeping the focus on the family was not adversarial to them focusing on what was their client's best interest. And so they were used to being combative with each other. They were used to or not being responsive at all, letting the department drive the case totally. So training them and having them accept the responsibility, training my staff that the families that come before us with CPS cases are families, period. They're families. And that they need to be treated with dignity and respect whenever they came to this court, just like any other litigant. And accepting my own responsibility, that I was the person who had the final say-so on what happened to these families, and to be responsive and to make sure that my staff or my associate control the case, not control it in the point of that we try the case as a lawyer, but control it in our responsibility as community servants. And so training that and the trainings and changing my way of viewing families and biases that I may have personally had, and changing the trajectory of attorneys' thoughts and knowing what I needed to do to address the traumas that these families have faced. Those have been most challenging.
Very good, Judge Johnson. Judge James, what kind of challenges do you see in your court?
One of the first things when I'm going to steal Judge Vaughn's word, intentional. I used the Grimes County as my microcosm to try this because I had a very strong prosecutor. I have a very strong stable of lawyers that practice and take appointments for parents and children. I've got a strong CASA program, and I had pretty amazing department personnel. So kind of started out with, guys, this is gonna happen, so I need you to help me make this work. There was a lot of pushback initially because everybody that goes to law school and practices law in a courtroom is used to being a gladiator. And so we had to shift from the gladiator mentality to trusting the court and trusting everybody else that this truly needed to be a collaborative effort. And, the prosecutor was concerned about these service plans not being what the department looks like. So what we did was the department can have their service plan just like they like it. But at the family group conference, the lawyers representing the parents would bring to them, this is how we understand these are going to be the services, but this is how we want them broken down. And I've talked to my client ahead of the family group conference, novel concept, and started that from the very beginning. And so everybody had the pieces that they needed because there's a struggle for the parents' attorneys to effectively communicate and get their parents to believe that reunification is a possibility, a probability if they will engage. And so having the parents' attorneys sit down with the parents ahead of time and go into the court setting, go into those meetings, knowing that it is a level playing field and knowing that they can ask for more services, they can ask for have them ratcheted back, and they had control over those time frames that the phases would happen in. So it was, once we got through that and the actual engagement of the parents, success looks different in every single case. And you've got to accept that success for one family may be very different for success for another family. And that's what we've found in a lot of situations. If the parents engaged, we had a better outcome because they engaged earlier. And while we don't have the parent notebooks, but I kind of like Judge Vaughn, I probably talked more in those settings than the lawyers did, asking the parents, tell me what you've been up to. Tell me what you've been doing. Tell me what you're the most proud of. That changes the dynamic in the courtroom more than I could ever use words to explain. Everybody takes a deep breath and they're heard. And if a parent feels heard in those settings, they engage a lot better, and they actually can help their lawyers move their case in a much, much more likely positive trajectory and get kids home.
Thank you,
But
Judge.
the challenge is changing it's a tectonic paradigm shift from an adversarial system to we are a team. And they've got to believe that. And that starts from whoever's presiding over that court.
Thank you, Judge James. I'm going to move to Judge Cheryl Vaughn. Challenges. I'm sure you didn't see any, right?
None at all. It was smooth all the way through. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the beginning challenge was just really narrowing down what we wanted to do to something that was manageable. so that we could see some successes on the way. I'm not going to go into more really what Judge James and Judge Johnson have already said, but I think we had the exact same thing with the challenges of getting the attorneys to really work collaboratively, because I think they worried that they were going to be not being the advocates for their clients that they needed to be. And so that took time, and it is still a everyday thing, for us to work through and acknowledge. So turnover of my people was huge, especially with CPS. I mean, we had a lot of changes during that time. We had several changes in our CPS attorney, and we've had tons of changes in our supervisors. And so that has been a challenge very much. We are about to transition to community-based care. And so that is a continuing challenge. The great thing about that is that we have a system in place that we know this is how we operate, that this is the environment of our court, and this is how we do things. And so there will be expectations that this might not be how you do things in other counties that you're involved in, but it is how we do things here, and this is why.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. We, like Judge James mentioned, we had to learn to define success differently than what we initially thought that it would be. Our original idea was success is always when kids go home. And is that still is, obviously the gold standard, that our kids get to go home to families that are healed and are healthy and are whole, but that doesn't always happen. And despite what we do, we can't always end up with that outcome. And so we really had to reframe what success looks like, and to not take it personally, I guess, when things don't end up that way, and not to necessarily look at it as a failure, but to question, was there more we could have done? Were there other things that might have made a difference? And to take those and learn from them for the next family that we work with. The last thing, that the big challenge really that we had was we had some very, very bad cases in a very short period of time, with several child deaths in a very, very short period. And we really had to acknowledge that being trauma informed and being trauma responsive starts with us. And we had to really focus on the fact that we questioned each other daily on, how are you? How are you doing? Because this is hard. And to realize that if we're not taking care of ourselves first, that we cannot take care of our families.
Thank you, Judge Vaughn. It sounds like y'all have taken it to the next step, from trauma informed to trauma responsive in all of your courts. And so it sounds like you're doing some really, really good work there. We're going to talk about positive experiences, although I need to get back to Jamie. Jamie has a question.
Fortunately, Judge Quesada, who's the associate judge with Judge Graves Harrington, was able to join us on Zoom, if we can hear from her about what they did in that court, if we have time.
Hi, good morning. I'm sorry for my tardy. I was in docket. But I am here. Thank you for having me. Judge Graves Harrington asked me to join and just talk about our project, which was a very fun project for us. In the 246, we are all about learning and trying to be better every day, because we all have something to learn. And what we focus on was education. Okay, there's a lot of talk about what trauma informed actually is, but we all need to learn what that is, right? And we did that through education. We created a year-long program with CLEs, continuing legal education, which we opened up not only for lawyers, but also for everyone that is involved in this process. Our trainings were open to CASA, they were open to CPS workers, CPS supervisors, lawyers, any lawyers. It didn't have to be lawyers on our will, any lawyer that was interested. And we had a good turnout. We had lawyers that had never done CPS come to these trainings, and everybody talks about it. So our year-long trainings, we started with what is trauma, okay, and the ACEs. We had a doctor come and talk about ACEs and talk about the trauma. We had very interactive trainings where we worked at one point with an egg and tried to keep that egg from getting trauma by dropping it and putting it in paper. It was like, I still remember about it. We still talk about it. We also had some trainings on the brain development. We had a doctor come and talk about that. We had trainings about what it means, what trauma means to each one of us. And we had pretty much trainings every month. And we learn a lot through the process, what days work for people, what days people don't want to be bothered. We come into the courthouse. We learn that people like to eat, and we learn about trauma. We learn what it means to be trauma informed and how from the first day in a court case, in a CPS case, when people walk in, we learn about how to greet people. We learned about how to look at the glass half full instead of the glass half empty. So we focus on education and learning how to be better trauma informed and how to help people, in our court.
Thank you, Judge Quesada. I believe we have a question by Justice Lerman.
Yes, thank you, Judge. It seems that a lot of the discussion from the judges has centered on the focus towards collaboration and away from the adversarial system, which seems to me to be a very positive thing in terms of, helping these families not feel so attacked, and so that they can really act from a position of not from fear, because fear-based, of course, creates all kind of negative behavior. My question is, where did that come from? Was there some type of training that you all received in order to figure out that was the direction to go? Or did you, because to me, the term, trauma-based, what is it? Services doesn't necessarily mean that. It could mean a lot of things, And so where did you kind of get that from, and was there any kind of definition that you were given, or did you just kind of make it up as you went?
Judges?
Go ahead.
I can't say that I learned about it, but it made sense. It made sense as you increase your knowledge and you saw interaction. And if you've dealt with CPS cases at all, you see what was happening. And they weren't centering on, everybody was representing their client no matter what. And you have to find out what is a common variable. And the common variable is family. So if everybody starts focusing on family, in order to do that, they have to work together. And so I think I'll let you hear from some of the other judges, but it just made sense. When you look at all systems, like in systems in life, everything works together, like even with the body. You have all these different systems, but they work all together for one goal, either to keep you living and keep you alive. So it's the same in the courtroom. If you're working for a goal of the ultimate goal, if you can get there, sometimes we can't get there. Just like Judge Yvonne said, a family unification, then we have to have everybody going in the same direction.
Judge Lerman, when I was in private practice, I was a big proponent of the collaborative law in the family law setting. And I've realized when I went to that training all those years ago, even though I've been a litigator my entire career, that especially with family situations, who is better suited to figure out how to move forward and have a future than the people that are going to have to live with that future? And so it made sense to me to let everybody take a deep breath. And you had to have, we talked about buy-in. It's more than that. There's got to be a level of trust between the parents' lawyers and the parent back to the parents' lawyers. You've got to have trust the kids that, yeah, you really are working to get them back home with mom and dad. You've got to have trust with the department, the understanding that their limitations as well. I mean, it all boils down to everybody believing that the common goal is real for everybody. And that when that paradigm shift happens, and the parents are heard in the courtroom, they're heard by their lawyers, they're heard by their caseworkers, they're heard by the CASA, they're heard by the judge, it truly changes the dynamic completely in the courtroom. But everybody also understands that everybody doesn't pull their weight. Equal opportunity offender, I'm going to bark at whoever's not pulling their weight to get back on track.
For me, I had the opportunity to become a TBRI practitioner back when I was about 2018, when I was representing CPS. And what I learned really in that wasn't just that with the children that we work with, the traumas that they've been through guide what their behavior often is. It guides their reactions, it guides their responses. What I really realized is that the same is true for the parents that we work with, that many of them, almost all of them, I would say, have some of those very same traumas that the children that we work with do. And that guides their responses and that guides their reactions. And if we can look at our parents and see the children that they were and the trauma that they had, then it changes how we work with them and it changes how we see them. As for the collaboration, during that training, we were able to watch what was at that time and about to be released documentary from the work that Judge Carol Clark did down in East Texas about her trauma-informed courtroom and the collaborative process. And it changed the way that I looked at how court should work with CPS cases. And so all of those things really drove the idea of we have to come together to work with and for this family.
Is there a bench book that you all use for this?
So in our court, we talk a lot about the 5 pillars of a trauma-informed court. And we also had Judge Clark come and do a 2-day training for our lawyers. And we learned a lot about, safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment. When our parents come to court, we always talk about, we're going to keep your children safe. We're going to work together. Don't worry about your kids. Whatever they need, we're all going to work together to make sure that they are safe. And then you can work on yourself. You can work on doing what you need to do. It's a team effort until it can no longer be a team effort. But we talk about what is our common goal. Everyone here has a goal, right? And we always talk about that with the parents. Our goal is to keep children safe. You love your children. You want them safe. We'll work together to make sure they're safe. And the goal is to keep your family together, right? That's the initial goal. That's what the law requires, to try to do everything in our power to keep you all together. So we're going to offer you these services. And we really, we try to talk to parents as people and not just as mom and dad. So our collaboration is like paramount to us. Let's work together. We want you to feel safe. We want you to feel empowered. We want you to feel like you can do this. And you have a whole team of people. Sometimes, we have 3-5 lawyers and all these people, CASA, everyone together, and everyone comes up with ideas. How can this is the goal. We always talk about goals. This is the goal. how do we get that goal accomplished? And it's open session. Everybody can say, we can do this, we can do that. So collaboration, trustworthiness, safety, all of that. We try to use all of that in every case, every single case that we see.
So let's say if there becomes a point where CPS sees that perhaps it's not working and things are not coming together and they are going to go forward with termination, is there some process at that point in time to inform the parents that this may not be a team effort anymore, or at least with regard to the prosecutor versus their parental rights?
I put in place docket control orders that if there's a goal change, there's got to be notice and there's going to be a hearing, especially if we're close to trial.
Okay. Yeah.
I think as far as, I mean, obviously that happens by trial. We really try not to change how things feel until then, because usually a goal change is made at the initial permanency hearing if no progress has been made, but parents can still turn it around. And I don't want them to give up because the goal of CPS has changed. And so what I will usually tell them is that, the goal has changed and this is why, but it doesn't mean that we're giving up on you. And so I don't really think things change for us until the trial. We still try to remain as collaborative as we can, but with recognition that things may not be going in the direction that we're wanting them to go.
And I second that. That's why we do here too.
I think, Mark, did you have a question?
I did. And my question really is, I'm sort of intrigued. How did you get the lawyers to buy in?
No.
I found that my invitations to do things are a lot different now that I'm a judge.
Yeah.
But I selected people that I knew as part of the team would actually embrace this idea, and they're creative in addition to being collaborative. And what I've seen is those are also kind of leaders within their lawyer community. And we haven't gotten there yet, but some of the positive outcomes that I've seen, I've got 5 counties. I've got lawyers that practice in a lot of those different counties. And even though they weren't on the team and they weren't necessarily in a case that had a phase service plan, they are now asking me, hey, Judge, I think this would be good for my client. Can we do a phase service plan? So it's been very organic, but I think it all boils down to when you start this process, being very selective with the lawyers so they can come up with a plan that they know is going to work in their community.
Yeah, I agree. Part of it too, though, is setting the expectation of this is how we're going to do things, but also listening to what the concerns are and being humble. And that some of the ideas that I had about how things might work, they didn't. And to say, how about some ideas? Because I thought this was the way to do things and it's not. And so we had, as part of our project, we had monthly meetings with the commission and with the alliance. But in addition to that, our team had meetings monthly as well, in addition, where we just talked, the group of us, to say what's going well, what isn't, what do we need to shift.
So I did exactly the same as Judges James and Vaughn. Additionally, I definitely handpicked the attorneys, and it's because I watched how they behaved in court, how they handled their own personal cases. I watched to see if they were people that were pretty much on the same spectrum as myself when it comes to families. And additionally, as part of the project, I like the survey. Though that was created by a group of attorneys. I paired the attorneys together and gave them a project within the trauma-informed court project to work on. The pamphlet, that was a different team of lawyers that worked together. These were attorneys who were always in opposition to each other, adversarial, but they learned how to work together. And they, that's one of the positives that has come out, the attorney's involvement, and to be able to get them to understand the focus is on the child, but the child within the family, and to safely return that child to the family when possible, whether it means adjustments by the mom, or adjustment by us on how we look at families and us redefining what we think safe is, because just because a person's house is dirty doesn't mean the child is not safe. And us not passing the wrong type of judgments against people and holding our impressions in abeyance. Put it on the back burner and just look closely at this family, what's truly happening in that family. So getting parent, attorney representing a mom to say, okay, mom, what do you need to do to return that child safely to you? And child is like, what does the child wants to return home? What do we need to do to make it safe for that child? We all know that we haven't been doing it right. And we're trying to do better, and we're going to improve.
Is there any type of a process that these cases these parents are being followed to have some statistical data on whether or not the parental habits of these or behaviors of these individuals improves more than in the regular adversarial system? Is that being tracked?
Justice Lerman, we've actually had additional data points added to the child protection court management system that OCA provides. We've got metrics that we've identified that are going to be input to figure out. One of our challenges was figuring out how to quantify what success was, where we're going, and one of the easiest things to do is figure out which cases for us had phased service plans, and how quickly parents went from supervised visitation to unsupervised visitation, possibly to a monitored return, possibly to placement back in the home, and when that didn't happen. So there are data points now in CPCMS, our data system, to track that. I think they just rolled out, Judge Vaughn, told us they just rolled that out fairly recently.
Yeah, the OCA was very, very helpful with working with us to be able to create a way that we could track that, because it's hard to track change.
Yeah, and you all need to be involved in those forms, of course, because I know that when I was a district judge, those forms did not really adequately reflect what we were doing. And so I don't even think they were uniformly filled out in a unified way. So I never had any faith in those numbers, because I knew that they just meant different things to different people. So I would encourage that a lot of focus be placed on working with OCA to make sure that those forms are easy to understand and are really getting the correct data, so that we will be able to track to see how much the lives of these parents has improved in terms of their parenting skills, in the two types of systems.
I think actually there was a training yesterday that involved all the coordinators who input that data from our courts, from the child protection courts, in conjunction with OCA. OCA has been an outstanding partner in getting that data where we could identify and quantify that data and collect that data, as well as the Children's Commission. You guys have been amazing.
Right. Luann?
Well, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I have sat here and listened, and I've had chills. I can't even tell you how many times. When we talk about the fact that change needs to happen, and the way that we've all done business for children and families needs to be significantly shifted. And how we talk about and how we think about children and families is so important. And we have just sat here and witnessed something to me that is absolutely incredible. And what's so incredible about it is that we know that we can change technical aspects of our work, but to be able to actually shift our attitudes, values, assumptions, and beliefs takes a lot of hard work, and it takes vulnerability, and it takes taking risks, being able to make mistakes, learn from them, and move on and don't make them again. And I want to acknowledge each of you for the incredible work, how we have been able to shift our thinking about families and how we can move forward together as the judiciary, as the child welfare system, as the mental health system, and how we can all change our thoughts and our behaviors. And so I just want to sit here and acknowledge you and say thank you. Thank you from all of us as a commission. Thank you for just all of the changes you've made and the impacts you're making on children's lives. I just want to say thank you. So.
Thank you. So is there anything else that we would like to cover on this very, very important project that is very exciting? I also want to express on behalf of the court, and I know Justice Huddle, how much we appreciate, you all's hard work and really looking to do something different, and then, tracking it with data so that we can back it up to see if it's working. So thank you very, very much. Anything else, Jamie, on that?
Judge Villalone?
Well, we had a series of questions, but I think we've hit the positives here, which was the next question. But I'm curious, what are the next steps for your court teams? We'll start with Judge Dunson.
We are increasing community awareness and collaboration by educating the community, increasing our resource networks, and increasing our trainings, and increasing the parental engagement, which we've seen a lot of that. I think it's very important, as Judge Lehrman was stating about what do we see in the parenting styles after they leave the court. So I think it's very important to create or connect the parents with groups, parenting groups, so they can partner with them, because it's amazing. Since I've been part of this trauma-informed court, I've had so many opportunities. Like this week, I was out at an event with all mental health professions. And last night I went to view a showing of a movie about mental health. So that's going to help, because I didn't know there were organizations that, it's sort of like AA, but it's for people with mental health issues, that they can go in and talk to people who are having the same experiences. Because I know in the African American community, it's difficult for us to accept the fact that mental illness exists in our communities, and for us to not label those people, but accept those people. They may have had traumatic life experiences, or it may be some genetic, but to be able to let those people know that it's okay, they're part of society and they can be productive in society, and they don't have to feel stigmatized as the families that come before us, and we'll sometimes like, oh, they're crazy, they got mental health issues. And then we say, close the door between them and their children. But to me, to be able to look at them differently and provide resources for them after they leave us, so that they can continue to be improved, so that they can keep their children with them and adjust their parenting styles to accommodate their mental health issues. So those are things that I intend to do moving forward, is finding resources and going out and spending time with those organizations or agencies or institutions so that we can make sure that they're available for the litigants that come before us.
I have one more question that's sort of like that, and that is that a lot of these parents, as we all know, are involved in drugs, and they have drug addictions. And we have these wonderful drug courts that are specifically designed to walk these people through that process. It sounds like it's a lot like what this new trauma-informed court is doing, but it's more specifically aimed towards the drug courts. And so it seems to me that if you're in an area that has a drug court, you may want to collaborate with that drug court rather than reinventing the wheel. And is that what's happening?
I think it's very akin to drug court setting. I participated in drug court in a different capacity years ago, but it's not terribly different. I think one of the things that I kind of the takeaway with drug court, obviously this is all about accountability. Everybody's got to be accountable for their actions. But that doesn't mean that you forget the golden rule of do unto others as you would have others do unto you, and recognizing we've got to meet everybody where they are, the kids, the parents. And if we do that, oftentimes the parents become a lot more accountable on their own because they recognize that we really do want to help them. But they're skittish because that's not how the system has treated them before.
I agree that it does run really close to the drug court model. We actually looked at forming a drug court, but the restraints or the constraints, I would say, for the children's protection courts that are in multiple different counties is that it's just not practical for us to be able to have the number of meetings that are typically required in the drug court model. So while we follow a lot of the tenets of drug court, we really kind of had to make that work in the way that we can with the limitations that we have.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where we left off with that last question, but we're getting close to time here. But let me ask this question. What advice would you give to other judges who want to do something like this in their courts?
Let's say concentrate on your strengths and not your limitations. What works for the judges that are in Harris County is not what works for those of us who are in rural counties. We have different strengths and we have different limitations, and we just have to be aware of that and don't try to be someone else. You know, I mean, it's the same thing in being a judge. You shouldn't be another judge because that works for them when that's not who you are. We have to follow the same thing. And so that's what I would say first and foremost is just be yourself, be humble, always be willing to change your mind on what you thought was going to work, and listen, above all else, listen, and to remain accountable. That was one of the greatest things that we had with the monthly meetings with the Children's Commission and with the Alliance, was that it made us be accountable, that we were staying on track with doing all the things that we were supposed to be doing. And if at all possible, have that support of the commission, because it gave us a level of credibility with our stakeholders, with our attorneys, that we would not have otherwise had.
I would say don't let the limitation start off with you not trying. If you are creative, if you want this to work in your community, you're going to figure out what does work and what works with your resources that you have. And don't underestimate the resources of the humans involved in this system, because everybody in the system works here because that's where their heart is. And just give them the opportunity to show that's where they are.
And I say, don't recreate the wheel. You have us. We're your resources. Make sure that you get proper training on your being a trauma-informed court, And always, always, always be willing to learn. There's always articles, there's always webinars out on the different judicial websites regarding trauma informed training. There's I'm here at the Center for the Judiciary and at the Texas Children Commission. They have webinars available. The State Bar of Texas also have them. I tell them to be committed to the change. Know that you have to change the way that you look at families and to face your own implicit biases that you have. And that sometimes it's difficult implementing the change in your court. Make sure that you are committed to it and make sure that you accept your responsibility, knowing that you get the last say so, you get the last word. All orders that are signed, that's your last word when you sign that order. So at that point, it becomes you making the choice. And so that the families are dependent on you and know that change takes time, that we are in it together and we all want to see a change.
Thank you. So Judge, anything else?
I'm just wondering if Judge Quesada has any final
Yes, Judge
words.
Quesada.
I was going to say, with regards to what's next, we are very excited to, of course, continue the trainings. We're also going to be an implementation site for NCJFCJ. And what that means is that we're going to collaborate with courts nationwide in order to come up with trauma responsive policies and practices across the nation. So we're very excited about that. We also created this year a resource room, and Judge Grace Harrington was able to get the Pelchin to hire a person that is kind of like a liaison between the parents and CPS. And what she does is that she goes out in the community and we have a resource room here in our court. Judge Grace Harrington works very hard to get these visions together. And so we have toys, we have clothing, we have bus passes. So this person is at every hearing, and when we identify a need that has not been fulfilled, then she collaborates with the community. She has people that she can call, organizations that she calls, and immediately after every hearing, she meets with them. They go up to our little room. It's a little square. It's not a huge room, but they go up there. The parents, not like yesterday, we had a hearing and the dad is having some difficulty with money, right? And Christmas is coming, and he was like crying about, I'm not going to be able to get Christmas presents. She's like, we have all this. So it's kind of like leaving with your spirits up. He went into the room and he got some toys, and, he knows that problem is solved. So we definitely want to continue that person here helping us with the parents. We've had her be able to get bus passes, furniture, anything. We're here trying to put things together. So we will definitely try to continue that. We're going to be that implementation site, and we're going to continue to just try to look at people as people and not as a case, and try to see that we are not all the same. I always try to find a common goal, and we're going to continue to do that. We have been very blessed to be a part of this team and this trauma-informed court. And I will tell you that it has changed me and the way that I look at cases, and to be able to, it is possible. It is possible to look at things half full. It is possible. And I think all these trainings that we've received helps me say, okay, let me take a step back. How do we problem solve? How do we make people feel like we really do care? Because we care, right? But sometimes when you're sitting here with this black robe and you're making this hard decision, sometimes it comes across that you don't care. But I have learned that there is a way to do it and still make people feel like, okay, you know what, that's the right thing. So we're going to try to continue to do all that and hope every day that we are changing lives.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you. This is wonderful. You really are going forward with the whole concept of problem-solving courts, which is a real paradigm shift than just, you know, the adversarial system to get to the truth. There's a place for that also, but this is wonderful. So thank you all very, very much. So now I think we're going to turn it over to Jamie to give us a brief update on the Children's Commission. I think you've been working on the bench book and a few other things.
Yes, and I've got one eye on the clock, so we'll be brief here today. Hello, everybody. Great to be with you all. I did want to share that the 2023 bench book is officially available in PDF on the Children's Commission website, and we expect it to be up on via the Lawbox app very shortly. It's just being uploaded, and we're working diligently on that. Printed copies were distributed at the Child Welfare Judges Conference. For judges, if you would like a printed copy, please email children@txcourts.gov, and we'll put you on a list to get one mailed to you. And I will hand the rest of the time to Milbrae to talk about Child Welfare Judges Conference briefly.
Thank you, Jamie, and I'll do my best to give a very high overview of our conference. Last week, we hosted the 16th annual Child Welfare Judges Conference in partnership with the Texas Center for the Judiciary. Went very well. Here are some numbers for you. We had 55 speakers in 2.5 days. 100 judges attended from across the state. We had 13 presentations and 10 concurrent regional breakouts where judges met with their department and SSCC staff to review regional data. As always, our goal is to give practical information to judges so that they can return to the bench right away with more tools in their toolbox. To fill in the numbers with some context, this year we hosted a pre-conference on assessing and addressing children's well-being from infants to older youth. We were honored to include the greatest number of lived experience speakers, and I want to give a special thank you to them because their perspectives are invaluable and inspiring. This year, we had a particular focus on supporting kinship placements, supporting parents from before the child welfare case, through the child welfare case, and after the child welfare case, as well as a focus on removing barriers to success for older youth. We had the highest number of commissioners serve as moderators and panelists. I'm very grateful that Justice Huddle was able to join us for welcoming remarks. I want to thank Texas CASA for hosting a lovely reception for us, as always, after the first day of the conference. And this year, Judge Graves Harrington was honored for her judicial leadership and innovation. I also want to express my gratitude to the commission staff, especially to Jamie and to Andrea, to all of our speakers, and to TCJ, without whom there would be no conference. And I want to close with a quote from a county court at law judge who said this to me at the CASA reception. If you are a judge hearing child welfare cases in Texas, this is the conference that you need to attend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milbrae. Okay, now then, with regard to the Collaborative Council, members were asked to provide written materials in advance, and those materials can be referenced at tab 4 on page 29 of your materials. I think that Barbara Elias Percival, is she here? Oh, is she? Okay. I think she has a brief update that she would like to make to the council.
Thank you, Justice Lehrman. I'm Barbara Elias Percival, the Director of Texas Lawyers for Children. And first, I want to say I'm so excited to have heard the 4 judges talk about creating trauma-informed courts and all that you're doing. I too want to thank you so much for your efforts and all your hard work. That's really exciting to see the paradigm shift that you're trying to create and already have created. If that has gotten everyone else in this meeting very excited about learning more about trauma, that's actually what I had planned to talk with you about this morning briefly, is that our organization has developed a 15-hour legal professional trauma training program for judges and attorneys. And it gives you 15 hours of family violence CJE, and for attorneys, 15 hours of CLE credit. The documentary that Judge Vaughn talked about on Judge Carol Clark's court is called All Rise. And that's part of the trauma training, so you can see the documentary. On page 31, after tab 4, on page 31 of your PDF, there is a flyer about our trauma training that you can send out to those in your courts, attorneys in your courts. As you know, as of September 1, 2021, attorneys who represent children in child protection cases must have training on trauma. And this 15-hour course, which is free to all judges and attorneys, it's totally free. This 15-hour course covers all of the topics that are required under Family Code section 107.004 for attorneys representing children. So I hope you will dive in deeper on the topic of trauma and register for this course. And you can just watch parts of it if there are only certain topics that you're interested in. I want to let you know about one other thing that's going to be coming up, and that is that the State Bar Child Protection Law section is going to be having a webinar early in 2024, probably in February. We don't have a date yet for a specific date, but there will be a webinar featuring Dr. Bruce Perry, who is one of the leading experts on trauma in the world, and that will be a webinar that you don't want to miss. Justice Lehrman will actually be presenting an award to Dr. Perry in that webinar. And so that's something coming up. And I want, as a prelude to that, Dr. Perry did a webinar for our organization that is an introduction to the Child Protection Law section's webinar. And to understand that one better, it would be helpful to watch the one we'll be showing probably in January, that will be on the misdiagnosis of mental disorders in foster children, because the symptoms of trauma overlap with the symptoms of many mental disorders. Also in January, we'll be having a webinar with a doctor who's done a broad medical research study that also reaches the conclusion that foster children are being misdiagnosed because the symptoms of trauma overlap. After we did this 15-hour course, we are also now going to a trauma program, our 2.0 version, which is going to focus on different treatment modalities, different types of trauma treatment that are very effective on traumatized children. As you know, we started with that in September with the EMDR seminar webinar. So anyway, there's lots of trauma training available in our online center. It's at texaslawyersforchildren.org. And so I hope you will dive in deeper and learn more. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Barbara. For those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Perry's work, we are really very, very fortunate to have him. He is a leader throughout the world, and was really one of the pioneers in really determining the physiological changes on the brain that results from trauma. And he's done wonderful work. I remember studying under him many, many years ago, and it was eye-opening. It was a bit depressing, but he's also come up with some strategies and some treatment modules that Barbara was referencing to help undo some of these things that happen, physiological changes that are real to the brain. These young children who've been exposed to these terribly traumatic events. So I encourage you all to watch that. He's really, really good, unbelievably great. So is there any new business? Okay.
Justice Lehrman, may I add one thing to what I said in follow-up to what you just said, and that is that Dr. Perry's presentation that I mentioned is coming as a prelude to the State Bar's presentation, is also in this 15-hour program. So if you want to see Dr. Perry now, you can do that today. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. So this has been great. This really is. This is what the whole purpose of the commission is, to really do exactly what we've done today, explore new ways, innovative ways to help these families and these children. So thank you all for engaging, for participating, for dedicating your lives to this very, very important work. We all appreciate it. Everyone on the court and all of us appreciate it so very much. Please remember that our meeting dates in the future are going to be Friday, February 2nd of 24. That's an in-person meeting. Friday, May 17th is our next virtual meeting. September 13th is our another in-person meeting, and November 15th will be our last meeting of the year, and it will be virtual as well. So we will not be seeing each other again until the beginning of the year. So meantime, you all have a wonderful rest of the year. Enjoy the holiday season and enjoy the cool weather. We're all so happy that that's here. And again, thank you all for your important work, and we look forward to working with you